Hey,
Hello, Dr. Rao. Good to see
yes,
you.
namaskar, namaskar.
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 Hello, hello,
Namaskar,
welcome.
Dr. Rao.
How are
Hello.
you?
Hello, how are you?
I am okay, fine. Thank you, madam. Thank you for
Welcome,
making.
welcome,
Yeah.
welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Sangeeta, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We'll just begin. A warm greeting to all of you logged in today on the occasion of this formal book launch of a much awaited collection of prose writings from Northeast India, edited by Malashri Jacob and Jaydeep Sarangi. As a foreword to today's program, it is an honor to talk a few words about the kind of literature in English which has been written in this part of our country, which perhaps took a little time but is a much required inclusion in the current Indo-Anglian canon of literature. The northeastern part of India would mean the 7 or 8 states of Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, Manipur, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Tripura, and we also include Sikkim in this group sometimes now. The English writings from this part of the country, along with the entire corpus of literature produced in their vernacular, their dialects, and the various indigenous sub-languages, are as beautiful and fascinating as their rich cultural heritage and their checkered histories are. Although there has been a point where the rather colonial term Northeast sounded like an exclusivist way of treating this region, we cannot ignore the fact that despite such hurdles, the region remained united and coalesced to each other by that strength of purpose, of perhaps creating their own narrative of struggle, keeping intact their own heterogeneous culture and their legacy intact. Today, prolific authors like the more I name, I think I am going to miss out much more than that. Like say Temsula or Mamang Dai or Hare Krishna Teka or Indira Goswami, Robin Nangom, Mitra Fukon, Janice Parriott, and so many, and we have so many of you here today in the program, have brought to the mainstream Anglophone literary scenario that aspect from this geographical space of India, which can only mesmerize us with its linguistic mastery and the richness of content that are no less from any other literature coming from any clustered geographical space of India, like South India or North India, or however geographical inclusions and exclusions can be done per se. Poetry, like a river, perhaps, has the natural tendency to flow faster and wider than prose. But that would be a controversial statement to make, as short stories and prose writings from the northeast of India create as much impact as the beauty of the hills too. And we can see that from the book. They stand tall and become a crucial building block in the whole corpus of Indian writings in English today. So without much ado, we would move on to hearing more about this compilation of prose writings from the northeast of India, and a few glimpses from its content would only justify my observations. So, I would now welcome Jaydeep Sarangi, one of the two editors of the book, to kindly take up from here and let the evening move towards its direction. I think it's northeastward. So, Jaydeep,
Thank you, Sangeeta. I start with Mamang, the floating island. The sloping mountain is trying to reach me. I think this book is like a sloping mountain, as Mamang's famous poem, Floating Island, will reach many a hearts. I cordially thank Dr. K. Sreenivasarao, Secretary, Sahitya Akademi, for gracing the occasion to welcoming all and welcoming the book, the new arrival, and for his relentless support for the book. Thank you. Thank you to the entire team of Sahitya Akademi, Parameshwarji, to uh, everybody who were instrumental in shaping out this book. Special thanks to the convener, Sahitya Academy English Board, Sanjukta Di, our own Sanjukta Di. I think no word is sufficient for Sanjukta Di, our always mentor. And uh, we are sprouts and growing up under her umbrella. And thank you, Malashri, for continuous support, inspiration, for taking up projects and going with it. Thank you for being there always. No word is sufficient to Mamang. Always, she is one call away as an inspiration, as a poet, writer, journalist, and whatnot. And thank you, Mama, for your time and contribution to the book. We are indebted to you. We thank Dr. Miruna George from Chennai. Then we also thank our guest speakers who will be talking about the book, about the context. And we also thank the contributors who will be reading out from their precious gifts as part of the book. And the book is not definite at all. I thank Dr. Margaret Pachuau, who will be talking about the book and talking about the context. And the book is not definite at the beginning, as we have hinted at, because we could not reach out all, but this is a kind of humble attempt to come out the prose writings, both fiction and a non-fictional prose, in a particular, of all 8 states, as a simple sampling before us. And it's very curious to know about the Northeast, because we know very little of it, still very little of it, but the knowledge should be holistic. The knowledge in academic discourses, academic syllabi, and curriculum should be holistic. So I think the book will contribute to this holistic purpose of knowledge. And it's a prayer flag, as Mamang's poem is a prayer flag in a way that it flags the culture and the language and linguistic diversity within the Indian writing in English in Indian context. I thank everybody present today, all the contributors, all the board members, English board of Sahitya Akademi, Honorable Secretary Sahitya Akademi, all contributors, and some people we could not reach out, and some actually could not submit their works in time. So we thank everybody for their support and concern for the book. Over to Sangeeta as a prayer flag to all of you. Thank you.
I would now request Dr. Sreenivasarao, our Secretary, Sahitya Akademi, to please say a few words.
Thank you, Sangeeta ji.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Mamang Dai ji, Professor Sanjukta Dasgupta ji, Margaret Pachuau ji, Miruna George, Dr. Malsawmi Jacob, Dr. Jaydeep Sarangi, Professor Malashri Lal ji, and all the friends who have joined this event. I'm glad to welcome all of you for this function to release prose writings from Northeast India, compiled and edited by Malsawmi Jacob and Dr. Jaydeep Sarangi. Friends, the culture and literature of the 8 Northeastern states have not received the attention they deserve. Being alive to this fact, Sahitya Akademi has been publishing literature from these states in translation for quite some time now. So far, we have published more than 50 books pertaining to this literature under various heads. In fact, few of these books have been further translated into various Indian languages such as Kannada, Tamil, Marathi, Punjabi, Kashmiri, and so on. I'm sure very soon this book also will go for translation into other Indian languages. Recently, we started publishing the critical inventory of Northeastern tribal literature, and so far we have published 2 volumes. Hopefully, translators and research scholars from other states make use of these volumes so that they can keep themselves abreast of what is happening in the states. Coming to the book that is being launched today, I sincerely hope this goes a long way in promoting varied literature of the region. In the introduction of the book, Malsawmi and Jaydeep Sarangi talk about the problems of tagging all literature under one nomenclature, as each region or state has vastly different culture. That is true, and Dr. Anil Kumar Bodo of Bodo language has been talking about this for some time now, especially the cultural response to various issues, even though issues may be same but cultural response are vastly different. Yet, a commonality among the responses and cultures of the Northeast regions can be found, and some of these literary responses could be angst, sense of alienation, coming to terms with cultural changes, and so on. If I remember correctly, Professor Temsulao, Dr. Mamang Dai, Dr. Malsawmi Jacob, Professor Easter Siam, Dr. Suranjana Chaudhary, and others have talked about this. That is one thing that needs to be taken up urgently and addressed. These responses may have various causes arising out of different cultural conditioning. The contribution to this book do highlight some of the factors relating to this. Apart from this, are there and can there be commonality of cultures between the states of Northeast and other regions of India, especially the ones that are geographically distant? That is a question. I have highlighted in my speeches over the past 4 or 5 years in some of these important events, and these such as commonality of cuisine, festivals, and costumes between Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, and Assam, and some of the myths between Tamil Nadu and Manipur. There are also studies on the common words between Assamese and Kannada. Dr. Mamang Dai's contribution on Adi, Dr. Malsawmi Jacob's article on pre-literate Mizo society, and a poem is a song, is a story by Eastern Kair, are some which are very interesting, especially Dr. Mamang Dai's article, since we who are living in other regions hardly get to hear about Adi except once in a while. I'm sure this book will be received keenly in other parts of India, and northeastern regions of India will receive increased focus and appreciation that they truly deserve. My thanks and best wishes to Dr. Malsawmi Jacob and Dr. Jaydeep Sarangi once again for giving this wonderful book to Sahitya Akademi. And as I mentioned in the beginning, we will take up certainly this book to get it translated into other Indian languages so that Northeastern literature will get flourished in other regions of India. With these few words, once again, I welcome all the learned scholars who are participating in this event. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
As the evening moves on, I would now like to invite Dr. Sanjukta Dasgupta to say a few words. Dr. Sanjukta Dasgupta, former professor and former head, Department of English, and former dean, Faculty of Arts, Calcutta University, is a poet, critic, and translator, and a teacher first. She is the recipient of numerous national and international grants, awards, and fellowships, and has lectured, taught, and read her poems and short stories in India, Europe, USA, and Australia. She was the chairperson of the Commonwealth Writers' Prize, UK. She is a member of the General Council of Sahitya Akademi, New Delhi, and convener of the English Advisory Board, Sahitya Akademi. She is also the president of the Intercultural Poetry and Performance Library at ICCR, Kolkata. Her published books include Her Stories, 20th Century Bengali Women Writers, Moni Mohesh, a translation, Swadesh, Tagore's patriotic songs, and most recently, In Memoriam, Sharon and Polataka, translations of Rabindranath Tagore. She has edited many books that also include Tagore at Home in the World, Radical Rabindranath, Nation, Family and Gender in Tagore's Fiction and Films, Towards Tagore, a collection of essays, and Golpo Shankalon, translated contemporary Bengali short stories. I welcome Professor Dasgupta to say a few words. Ma'am.
Thank you, Tanya, Thank you, Sangeeta, for that very generous introduction. Uh, and hello, everyone. Wonderful to see you, Dr. Rao, Malashri Jacob, Jaydeep Sarangi, Mamang, Malashri Lal, and many others who are here. It's always meeting on a Zoom platform is like a reunion. And today it's a very important day for all of us because we're going to launch a book about which we do not know too much, even today in 21st century India. And that is why this book is very special. In fact, as I was thinking, I remember when I was growing up as a child, the Northeast at that time meant Assam and Shillong, and that's it. We did not know about anything else. It was like the whole of South India being Madras. Yes, for Bengalis with their limited understanding of the world, and with that or rather the arrogance of ignorance, I think, felt very happy to have this limited knowledge at one time. But in the last 10, 15 years, things have changed totally. And we in Bengal are more aware, as is the rest of India, about all other states of India, and especially the Northeast. And as Sangeeta was also introducing the theme, the book today, she referred to several of the states, but I think you did not refer to Tripura. Did you or didn't you?
I did.
Okay. So 8 states, but generally the focus is on 4 or 5 or 6, but it is rarely that we find that all the 8 states are the part of Northeast India. And Malashri and Jaydeep correct us right away in the very first sentence of the introduction by saying it is quite convenient to refer to the Northeastern part of India simply as the Northeast. But there is nothing called a Northeastern, and the concept is purely geographical. I see the irony of the whole lack of understanding in terms of what Northeast India should mean. And again, in terms of Bengal, in terms of people of Kolkata, our introduction to the Northeast was again, as we were growing up, through Tagore's love story, the novel or novella, whichever way you want to call it, Shesher Kobita, the last poem. There we first became familiar with a topography which was very different from the plains of Bengal. It was about winding hilly tracks. It was about cars making a wrong bend. On a hilly track, if you do that thing, an accident is bound to happen. But this was a very good romantic accident. Yeah, 2 young people meet each other. And then, of course, the flora and the fauna. And I remember one particular 2-line while I was way back in school, where a particular bunch of flowers is being described by Tagore. And this is a tree I had never heard of before. And so Tagore had written, Uddhato jato shakhar shikhare rhododendron gucho. Rhododendron, I thought, oh, that was a mouthful. I could really impress my friends with a name like that. So it would be atop on the defiant branches, there were clusters of rhododendrons. Yes, blossomed clusters of rhododendron. My very poor translation instantaneously. So I think it is very important that we not only think in terms of the 8 states which make up the Northeast, but also the voices we are hearing from the Northeast. We are looking at the dynamics of the insider and the outsider with no conflict between the two. Jaydeep and Malashri has proved that by editing the book. Yes, so the native informant rooted in the native soil, would be the only spokesperson for a particular region, a particular culture, a particular community is not what we are looking at. Then, of course, Tagore wouldn't have written Chandalika, which is all about the Dalit problem. And he wrote it. And so it's always the narrative of the outsider and the insider and the dynamics of the two. And this bridge building between the two is, I think, crucial in terms of taking this forward. Because otherwise, again, it becomes exclusive. We are not looking at exclusionary factors. I think we are looking at inclusiveness. And that is what Dr. Rao pointed out, that he will see to it this book is translated into the 24 regional languages which are supported by the Sahitya Akademi. That is how we can be a sort of a conduit to bring the diversity of India on a single platform. And that is what we need to do. And that is what I think is going to happen in the 21st century. And of course, and there are very interesting essays here, and also a very, very fascinating essay in terms of food culture by Mitra Phukan. That is also very important, because the food culture is something that where you do not need to be a reader to appreciate food. An illiterate person can also appreciate food, as movies can be appreciated by the illiterate as well. Yes. So in terms of course, filmmakers will not probably like my remarks about films and food together, but all of it is food for thought. Not only gastronomic experiences, but the experience of imbibing, consuming something unfamiliar. And I will just end with a few lines from a poem which is not supposed to be sung at all outside a forest. This is a poem from Nagaland, and the translation is by Easterin Kire, and this is the poem. Song of the Forest. I'm reluctant to let you go into the denseness of the forest, where the tiger lurks and enemy warriors wait. If any of you come upon my love, tell him to waylay me. If I did not love you, would I come to see you every day? I love you when your face lights up with laughter, and I love you too when you are somber. One of the most brilliant love poems I've ever read. Thank you so much, and looking forward to Prose Writings from the Northeast being launched today and going forward on a confident journey of capturing the hearts and minds of both global and local leaders. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was really brilliant. Thank you so much. We would now move on to welcome Mamang Dai, who's there with us now, and we would I would take the opportunity to welcome her. Mamang Dai, an esteemed poet, novelist, critic, and journalist based in Arunachal Pradesh, is one of the most intense poetic voice from the Northeast region of India. The recipient of the Honorable Padma Shri in 2011, she has innumerable poems published in various anthologies and many books to her credit. Her book, Arunachal Pradesh, The Hidden Land, had won her the state's Barrier Elwin Award. Some of her books include The Legends of Pensam, Mountain Harvest, The Food of Arunachal Pradesh, and River Poems, to just name a few. She is a member of the Northeast Writers Forum also. So with that very short introduction, I welcome Mamang Dai to say a few words here and now.
Thank you, Sangeeta.
Thank you.
Hello, Sanjukta. We always seem to meet only online.
Yeah.
Dr. Rao ji, of course, and Jaydeep, Malsawmi, Chophell is here, good friends, Bijoy, Malashri ji, Bhaskar Roy Barman, and everyone who is here in this meet today and those who might be present online or offline, is it? I'm not quite sure. But anyway, I was, first of all, I don't have that much to say, but I would like to extend my very sincere congratulations to Malsawmi and Jaydeep for taking up this great project. I think it's a great initiative. And I should also thank, Sahitya Akademi, who have been working with all the Indian languages despite here sometimes, there sometimes, despite the drawbacks of such a multilingual, huge country. I think Sahitya Akademi still deserves our gratitude for taking the onus of promoting all the regional languages. And Sanjukta, of course, as convener of the English Advisory Board, has also done such committed work towards promoting, different regions and different languages. I was thinking, in this time of pandemic, there are so many rules about social distancing and, the health issues and the lockdowns and the curbs on certain things you can do and not do and to, uh, well, quite a lot of things imposed. Normally writers, do prefer their solitude. We are quite possessive about our privacy, but when it's imposed, it becomes a little bit of, unsettling time for all of us, I'm sure. But within that circle, I feel, most writers will agree that with writing, there are really no rules. You can write, use words as you please, point them on a page, go this way in any direction. And I think the book, Prose Writings from Northeast India, also brings this to the fore, not only for outsiders, for readers outside of the region, but also for within ourselves. I was fascinated by the anatomy of a rain cloud. I think it's from Zualteii Poonte, whom I met some time ago, and also Baruch Jacobs' Chumle Vak. Now, these are pieces of creative writing, creative fiction that is going in another direction from the usual, native sentiment of folklore and the research that is going on there. This is just taking off in literally, floating away with clouds, and it is all done in very aesthetic language, in a very interesting look at things, with a little undercurrent of that folkloric element, of what our forefathers might have told us. So it's interesting that Sanjukta ji has talked about bridge building, because this is within and outside also that this kind of building goes on. There are many essays on, culture, literature in Shillong, also the contemporary scenario in the Northeast region today, as shown in one of our very dear bureaucrat friends here, Mr. Tashi Chophell is here. He's also a wonderful poet in a house for Anum Adek, how things go on, that schemes are never implemented. So this is also, again, re-examining our own, and I think this is very important for literature, because where history is also our muse, because we are using so much of the past, because it was unwritten and because it needs to be recorded. So side by side with the recording, there's also, a different kind of appropriation or reception of the past that is going on, as is evidenced in Easterin's essay, in my own writing, for example. But dealing with the contemporary scenario, of how to get a house under government schemes. All this is all quite new, and I think it has come through wonderfully in this book. This is what will create actually the literature of a place, a region, if we want to identify the whole Northeast geographical area as a particular, region, but with the diversity of cultural landscapes and all the distinct language traditions. So I think this is quite important. And I would also just like to throw open maybe for discourse, maybe even later, what is this relationship we have with antiquity, since we keep talking about oral traditions, or even others keep talking about the wonderful body of oral traditions of the Northeast region. Everywhere in the world, there are pockets where there are wonderful oral traditions. And I think the oral tradition also belongs to, Western literature. Everything is born of this oral tradition. So maybe we should not focus so much on that as being specific to our region, but broaden it from our own writings also and say this is, whether it's, we will always venerate antiquity and just write about it without freedom, let's say, without creativity, or how will we occupy this third space, of the writer between what is gone and what is present, and maybe what future generations of young writers and poets will address. So I won't say too much. I just wanted to say the cover is Sikkim, is it, Jaydeep? The cover of the book, is it Sikkim? Is it Gangtok?
It's Aizawl, Mamang. It's
Oh,
Aizawl,
it's
Mizoram.
Aizawl.
Right. No, and there are interesting inputs. Of course, Bijoy has also written about the great people who might have been forgotten in, the creation of Manipur theatre, for which Manipur is so well known. But what I'm saying is, to actually be able to share or transmit the inner lives of cultures. That's a quote I've taken from, I don't know, it's just stuck in my mind, but I remember people talking about the inner lives of cultures, like, the poems that are sung only in the forest, or rice culture, lullabies, food culture, as you mentioned. All these things are such a mosaic. It takes time, even for writers to address these things and then to share them beyond borders. So I think I've more or less exhausted myself with what I was trying to say, but thank you. And really, I wish this book, Godspeed. I'm sure it will be read by many and will generate interest. And I just like to end with a quote of Rumi, whom I keep very close to me during these days of the lockdown. What you are seeking is seeking you. Thank you, Jaydeep. Thank you, Malsawmi. I'll pass it on over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mamang ma'am, for that excellent, glimpse into the book, as also into the culture of the Northeast, which we are trying to understand through this. This has been a lovely evening, and we move onwards to our third speaker. Professor Margaret L. Pachuau is the head of Department of English, Mizoram University, and as having an extensive background in translating Mizo folklore, we believe that she would be the right person to throw further light upon this book. We invite you, Margaret ma'am, for your kind words.
Thank you very much, Vasundhara, and a very good evening, everyone. Just a slight correction out over there. I'm actually not the head of department anymore. We go on rotation basis, and I'm currently not the head of department. So that's just a very, very slight correction out over there. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. And yes, congratulations to the editors, P. Malsawmi Jacob, and also to Professor Jaydeep Sarangi, and yes, to the publishers, Sahitya Akademi, and all the contributors who have brought together this very, very wonderful anthology, and also from all the states across Northeast India. I will not dwell too much on that particular aspect because the speakers before me have done a wonderful job at that. And what I would like to say over here is that, needless to say, this book is a very, very welcome addition to the growing corpus of anthologies from Northeast India, writings from Northeast India, be it prose, be it poetry, or, you know, the way we put it, fiction, non-fiction. And I have been immensely pleased, especially as somebody who's worked intensively in the field, to have heard that it was it's not only published, but it's being released now at this point of time, because you know what happens out over here is that, as we all know, Northeast India, in terms of the topography itself, the speakers before me have also gone on to explain, and I think all of us in this group also, we're often very, very baffled about, you know, what comprises Northeast India. I think this book basically will be significant in telling the lay reader and also the serious researcher about, you know, what comprises Northeast India basically, and also the kind of diversity and the beauty that is there in terms of the literature. That's one. And the other thing is that, you know, it's often literature from the Northeast is what often falls under what we call, you know, minority writings, minority literature, basically. And this is something which I really don't know who would be at fault over here. I guess all of us would be at fault, basically. I mean, because, you know, whether it's the decision makers at UGC, for example, I've done 3 major projects under UGC. Every time I've gone to present my projects out over there, I'm asked to explain, you know, where the Northeast is. And, you know, and often I feel like asking them, you know, didn't you learn geography in school? And it's a little baffling, you know, sometimes. And I know that they do it because, well, I guess it's because they're very, well, they're interested to know. I mean, I would like to say that, you know, they're interested in not knowing exactly where the Northeast is, you know, and if you tell them, for example, I come from Mizoram. So if you say, you know, I'm from Mizoram, and then they'd say things like, you know, oh, is that a part of Assam? You know, mercifully, Assam is a place which, you know, they all know. So, you know, things like that. But the important thing out over here is that, you know, what I have learned in my academic journey and having translated from Mizo to English, and having written also on the literature, on the culture aspects, or in terms of Mizo studies out over here, is that books like these are so important because you see, it's important because you see, it's the important thing is you don't sit there or you don't just stand there getting offended. It's important that you strike back. And when we talk about, you know, post-colonialism, and when we talk about, you know, the empire writing back, remember it was us, I mean, as you know, the post-colonial, in terms of the post-colonial also, you had people writing back. This, in terms of Northeast writings especially, is basically us writing back, not to the colonial aspect, but well, to the rest of India and perhaps to the rest of the world also, so that we bring the periphery to the center. That's extremely important. Books like these, works like these, help us to amalgamate, to come together so that, you know, our voices are heard. It's not like, you know, we're not heard basically, but these are the kind of writings that make our voices heard. The other thing over here that I would like to also denote is that I'm glad that this book has, you know, the critical pieces, it's got the creative pieces, which are absolutely beautiful. And again, because I'm speaking not only in terms of the book, but, you know, somebody who's representing the state, basically, in terms of the speakers out over here, I would like to point out that, you know, we've got several Padma Shris in the state who've got their Padma Shris in the field of literature and education. You know, the most Padma Shris, the most awarded Padma Shris, the field that they get in is literature and education. And after that, we've got a couple who've got, you know, in social work, and that's basically it. In the year 2002, I had done a workshop with Katha, and and that was on translation, and that culminated into a book called The Heart of the Matter. And many of our, some of our writers who had written there were also part of the project. And what struck me at that point of time, and what basically strikes me even till today, is that a whole lot of forget the entire world as such. A whole lot of our Padma Shri awardees and even our, really talented creative writers basically are not known, are not read, simply because they were not translated and simply because they have not been published by, say, national or international publishers. They had published themselves in the vernacular, whatever translations that they've been able to do also, they had this very, very, wide corpus. But it had been published locally, had been disseminated locally, and obviously didn't even reach the borders of Assam. We have this, it's a joke that we have out over here in Mizoram, and it goes that, what is the point of writing or publishing? Because nobody is going to read the text, because it's not even going to go beyond Vairengte. And Vairengte is a town that borders Silchar in Assam, which means, it's not even going to reach the next state, the next, the boundaries of the next state, that's Assam. So who's going to read it? So, but simply because, people have not been published by national, nationally renowned publishers, like say Sahitya for that matter. So Katha, of course, the translation workshops were, one big step. I'm very, very happy that Sahitya Akademi is publishing, and there are a couple of writers also who have been published under Sahitya Akademi, Mizo writers, and I'm sure, across the Northeast also. I'm very hopeful, and I'm confident that this text will find its way into the homes of many readers, and also through our libraries. We've got departmental libraries in our department. We've got central libraries across all universities, across all states. I'm sure that, this book will find its way there on its shelves for the lay reader and also for the serious researchers. So congratulations once again. And amidst the turbulence of the pandemic, this is extremely, extremely heartening news. Thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Margaret.
much for drawing attention to the anonymity of writing from the Northeast. And as you rightly pointed out, that talking about identity is also an extension of the identity discourse. And with that, we move ahead into our fourth speaker. Our fourth speaker is Dr. Miruna George, who has been Associate Professor of English and was the former Head of Department, Stella Maris College, Chennai. Ma'am, I invite you to share your opinions on the book.
Good evening. It's a great honor to be present here alongside very, very, esteemed and popular writers, critics, theoreticians, creative writers here. I feel an honor given to me by Dr. Jaydeep Sarangi. And as an academician, I feel that it's my duty to share my own thoughts and reflections on reading the book. He has sent to me the PDF of the book, and as an academician, I find it a very, very interesting package here because, as part of Indian writing in English at Stella Maris College, where I teach, we have always given proper representation for writers from the Northeast region. And I remember when I was doing the syllabus for the Indian writing and English paper, we had Temsula Hours, These Hills Called Home. and my students were so enthralled, reading those stories. And later on, we had Mamang Dai's poems, and recently my PhD scholar is working on Eastern Korea's works. So here, when I looked at the book, I found that it was so enriching. And as someone, looking at it at a broader perspective, as a teacher of critical theories as well, until now, there's so much of focus on Eurocentric approach to literature per se. And, the global north so far kind of, took all our attention and focus. So here, with the coming of postmodernism and post-structuralism, my previous speaker rightly pointed out, there had been a shift in focus in terms of post-colonial studies, and the global south has taken a lot of prominence now in terms of interest and focus. And you see that this collection of essays here, the prose collection here, fulfills that gap. And right away, in the beginning itself, it clearly, makes it a point that, it's a grave mistake when people, the outsiders like us, tend to have a homogeneous view of the Northeast region. You look at that collection of essays as an ethnographic documentation. I would prefer to put it that way. We are not looking at it as exoticized, products here in terms of the creative pieces as well as the critical writings there. On the other hand, you look at the compilation of essays as, relating to the everyday reality of life. Mamang Dai right now spoke about the inner lives of individuals. That's the kind of experience I had when I was reading those essays. And many of us, who teach literature, for us, when it is, as far as theatre is concerned, we think, Rathanthiyam and Kanhailal, with that, our kind of, study and research stops. Only with that. But then reading on the indigenous folk practices and performance traditions, and then of course talking about Lai Haruba, and then the kind of myths and folklore and traditions here, these all are formed part of the belief system of the people of the Northeast. Okay. Now, when I was reading the book, I was thinking that, you can have a three-prong approach to Northeast writing. First and foremost, you look at it as micro narratives. So when I'm talking about micro narratives, we are looking at, the creative pieces here as indigenous writing. At the same time, you're also looking at it as ethnographic detailing. So you get to know more about the Assamese cuisine you're talking about, the weaving culture of Pukan there, and of course, the way the cloth here symbolizes, it has its own cultural significance at the weddings, during, death ceremonies, as exchange value, etc. here. So here you see these kind of individual detailing has captured, of course, the lived reality of the people living in Northeast region. And one more striking feature about the book is that, the creative writing piece. When you're looking at the creative writing section in the book, you see that, the poems are so, endearing, they are straight from the heart. And it addresses the details of common people. It's not like a war poetry. It is not like, you see, talking about heroic tales or anything. It's about the simple lifestyle of the people, the way the forest has provided a veritable backdrop to those, stories that are being told. And of course, you're also coming to know about the conflict, the Naga conflict there, and of course, the politicization of the everyday struggle there, etc. So on the whole, I find that book a complete package here. And if anyone is missing out on that, it's going to be, what do I say, a grave loss for them. So I really appreciate the efforts taken by Malsawmi Jacob and Dr. Jaydeep Sarangi in bringing out this collection of essays. And I'm very, very happy that it will be available for me to teach in my own classrooms, because in my class, I have a lot of students in Chennai. We have a lot of students coming from the Northeast region. And they come and tell us, how in Chennai, they are always welcome and they have never felt as an outsider. So I'm positive that this book also will get the kind of deserving welcome, it kind of, the privilege that I will have to teach the book in my own classroom. So I'm looking forward to laying my hands on that book. So Dr. Jaydeep Sarangi, once the book is released and the publication is available, I'm very happy to own a copy and make it accessible for the faculty and my students in this part of India. So thank you very much again for this wonderful opportunity to be on part of this, as part of this program, sharing space with all the writers and of course the critics and the students who are present here. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Jaydeep. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for drawing attention to these narratives as micro-narratives, as ethnographic narratives, which tell us more about the world that they are born in. And that is very close to what Mamang ma'am just talked about, a culture finding itself and unentangling itself. We are going to do a slight change in the program because we have become very greedy now that Malashri ma'am has joined us. And though she was not intended to speak, we are not going to let her go without a few words. So yes, we are going to call and invite Malashri ma'am. Malashri Lal has been professor in the Department of English and former Dean of Colleges, Director of Women's Studies and Development Center at the University of Delhi. She has a specialization in literature, women and gender studies. Her 16 books, include the very well-known Finding Radha and In Search of Sita. She's also currently member English Advisory Board of the Sahitya Akademi, and we are not going to let her go without talking about the book. Over to you, Malashri.
Well, thank you very much, Vasudhara and Sanjukta, Jaydeep, Malashri for including me in this book release program at so spontaneously. I'm really, really touched. And fortunately for being in Delhi and in association with the Sahitya Akademi in the city, I was able to get my copy of the book 2 days ago. And the moment I got it, I plunged into it and sent Jaydeep a message to say, this is so wonderfully done. And when you're asking me to say a few words, I'm going to tell you why I think it is such an important book. As the title tells us, it's prose writings from Northeast India, and it's very unusual to get prose writings. Over the last few years, we have fortunately been able to access poetry, fiction of various kinds, certain material on oral traditions, as Mamang was saying. But we don't always get an analytical perspective on the Northeast. So respecting the diversity of the region, and the introduction by the editors make that very clear. Along with that respect for the diversity, the clear examples that are featured in the book in terms of prose analysis, and that includes also going into fiction and reading out beautiful poems as Sanjukta just did. So I think it's a very important contribution, particularly as Dr. Miruna was just saying, for the classroom. Because we need books like this. And what this allows us to do is to take academic perspectives on what is happening in the Northeast from the point of view of people like myself, an outsider. And many of our students in the classroom are also outsiders. But there has to be a way of understanding this region. So whether we are talking about this issue of the oral tradition, do we celebrate it uncritically? Do we think about it becoming frozen in time because it has been put into script? Whether we are talking about translations as a bridge, as Sanjukta mentioned, these are all issues that are woven into the texture of this book and extremely relevant. Another issue that comes up from this analytical perspective is the melting of genres that one has often thought about in terms of the material from the Northeast, but this book actually illustrates it. There is an essay on how song becomes poetry and the interlinkage between food and cultures. So these are not separate things. And in a way, it is good that we have come to understand the Northeast from a later stage than, say, perspectives on Bengali literature, Tamil literature, Malayalam literature, which has a longer history, at least in the writing in English. Today, when we're looking at the Northeast, we are aware of respecting the diversity. We're aware of the fact that a lot of it was oral literature. We are aware of the need for translation, as Dr. Rao was just mentioning. But let's get the perspectives there in the classroom. And let us get it from the seminar academic point of view, because that's very, very important. And I really thank Malashri and Jaydeep and all the contributors in the book for giving us this marvelous and very handy compendium by which to approach Northeast literature. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Malashri. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was so gracious of you to, respond so spontaneously as we demanded a few words out of you. So thank you so much. Thank you. We would move on to the second part of the program today, and here I would like to invite and ask Malashri ma'am to please speak a few words introducing the content of the book a little. Malsawmi Jacob is a bilingual poet and writer who has published 9 books. A native of Mizoram, she has worked in different cities of India, taught English to undergraduate students in Bangalore and Aizawl, was senior coordinator at Sparrow, Mumbai, and freelanced as a journalist in Guwahati as well. She has also contributed poems, stories, and articles to several anthologies and journals. Her novel, Zorami, A Redemption Song, is a prescribed reading in 2 university campuses and used by scholars as part of their research material. And most importantly, being one of the editors of this book that we are talking about today, I'm sure Malsawmi ma'am has a lot of things to tell us about the book right now. So over to ma'am. You are muted. You need to unmute yourself.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Sangeeta. And I just have to correct somebody. Rausa said, I'm not a doctor. I'm just simply a MS. I never got a chance to do my research. Well, this I'm really thankful to Sahitya Akademi and all the contributors for their contributions. And we actually the life force behind the whole thing is Professor Jaydeep, and it was he who initiated the whole thing. And we at first wanted to do a collection of poems, but when we suggested to Sahitya Akademi, they said, no, we'd rather have a prose, and that only from the Northeast. So we set to work, and we tried contacting several writers whom we could think about, and it was kind of a rather hurried affair. We collected emails somehow, and then asked some people whether they knew somebody who could who would be able to contribute prose. And like we said before, it'll be pretty easy to collect poems or maybe short stories as well, but collecting prose writing as such was quite a challenge. And then some of the people we wrote to, some of them said, okay, I'll contribute, but somehow they got too busy and couldn't send in anything. And then, you know, in the hassle, there were times, yeah, when we needed their addresses, we needed their their permission, their signed permission and all, and then we needed their phone numbers, all sorts of things happened, and you get quite confused and hassled. A couple of times I caught myself trying to send a WhatsApp message to some of the writers to ask for their phone number. And I just managed to check myself in time. That is how confused we could get. And anyway, it took, quite a long time for the final print to come out, with a lot of things going here and there. And me, I'm not at all used to publishing, especially with Sahitya Akademi, who is so meticulous about things that they actually wanted a signed permission from each of the authors for publishing and all that. So it was quite a different experience for me, and I learned a lot of things. And of course, like I said before, it's because of Professor Jaydeep Sarangi's persistence and patience, and he at every step he had to sort of instruct me, okay, write to the contributors, this, that. It went on like that. So it's been quite a lot of learning in the process, and maybe if we do it next time, we'll be a little, maybe I'll hope to be a little smarter than this. And yeah, it's been a really good experience. Even though the speakers have mentioned something about from our preface, just for the sake of the audience, maybe I'll read a short excerpt from my introduction. It is quite convenient to refer to the northeastern part of India simply as the Northeast, as they have read before. But this has the adverse effect of giving the impression that the region is one unit in terms of culture and language, which is far from fact. However, we will continue to use the term here, both for the sake of convenience and out of habit. At the same time, we need to keep in mind that the term only indicates a geographical location and not homogeneity of the people. The Northeast consists of 8 states: Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim, and Tripura. If one looks at the map, the region is attached to the rest of India by a narrow strip aptly called Chicken Neck to West Bengal, 7 states to the east, and 1 state, namely Sikkim, to the west. This chicken neck is rather symbolic of the cultural connect. West Bengal's culture and language has some link with Assam, which gradually disappears as one goes further into the region. It may be cliche to say that India is a country of diversity. Its citizens belong to different races, ethnic, cultural, and language groups. The same is true of the Northeast, which someone has called a cultural cauldron. The region is a mini India in the variety of cultures, languages, and people groups. In the field of Indian literature in English at the present time, writers from the Northeast states have contributed much to the country's treasury. Isterin Kire of Nagaland, Mamang Dai of Arunachal Pradesh, Janice Pariat and Kinpam Singh Nongkenri of Meghalaya, Mitra Phukon, Orup Dotto and Dhrubo Hazarika of Assam are a few of the celebrated fiction writers in English. There are a good number of well-known poets besides. However, despite the prevalence of creative literature, this is what the point that they have made before, but I'll just repeat it. Despite the prevalence of creative literature, prose writing of analytical nature is still comparatively rare. Whereas it is not difficult to collect poems for an anthology, collecting prose writing was quite a challenge. Several of the writers we approached for this book could not contribute as they were too busy. Thus, this collection is not as representative as we would have wished. Some of the writings are exotic and deeply rooted in the milieu. A few of them are fiction, so we still have a good sampling of the region's prose in this anthology. If we can take up such a project again, we should have a much fuller collection. Thank you.
Thank you, Malsawmi ma'am.
Thank you.
We would now move on to hearing a few excerpts from the book by the contributors themselves. We have three of them among us today. We would straight away go to Mr. Tayenjam Bijoykumar Singh, who we would invite him to read from the book.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Good evening, everyone.
Can't hear you.
Okay, you can't hear. Can you hear?
Yes.
I can hear, yeah.
Okay, then. Thank you, Sangeeta. Good evening, everyone. My article in the book is under this title, The Man Who Revolutionized Manipuri Theatre After World War II. I'll read a few excerpts, a few paras from the beginning and go straight to the end. In the beginning, plays were very closely associated with religion. It may be because plays started at places where people gathered in large numbers, and the places inadvertently happened to be places of worship. Modern Manipuri theatre, performed in the proscenium theatre, similar to the Western theatrical model, was molded under the enthusiastic patronage of Saturatan Maharaj, 1891 to 1941, and Pravas Milan was performed for the first time in 1902. Then Tongbam Gitchandra Singh entered the theatre movement in Manipur after World War II. He is better known by his pen name Jishi Tongra. He was worried about the decay and loss of harmony in the society. His plays clearly reflect it. He was a champion of the downtrodden. Throughout his life, he stood steadfastly against the social evils and fought a never-ending war for the cause of humanity, with satirical plays as his weapon. His father had 3 wives. He was the only child, son of the second wife. The other 2 wives had no child. His family was not well off, but still better than the families of his childhood playmates. He grew up with 3 mothers. Many people talk about ill treatment by stepmothers. This he could never agree. It was the first mother who pampered him. He was deeply indebted to her and wrote for the upliftment of women as a tribute to her. He started learning at home with his father as a tutor. He was a good student. When he was studying in class 9 at Johnson High School, he taught in his class. Right from his early days, he was interested in plays. All the members of his family also shared this interest. His father was very jovial and kept everyone merry with his jokes. Whenever he threw tantrums, which incidentally were very frequent, and other members of his family could not quieten him, his father used to pacify him by telling stories and cracking jokes. He passed matriculate examination in 1930 and topped the list of successful candidates from Manipur. He got a stipend of 35 rupees per month and continued his studies at Cotton College, Guwahati. After passing ISC examination, he could not continue his studies as his father had become very ill and was bedridden most of the time. Gambling was one of his weaknesses. After discontinuing his studies, he started earning as a private tutor. However, he gambled away whatever he earned and in turn earned himself a bad reputation. He married at the age of 23 while everything was unsettled. When asked about his untimely marriage, he replied, "I suppose I had done it just for a change." After his marriage also, he continued to play cards and gambled away all his earnings. Not satisfied with it, he borrowed money and pawned his friends' bicycles to raise money for gambling. He lost everything in the end. He sat in the entrance examination for medical studies and was selected, but he did not have the money for admission and had to opt out ultimately. In 1937, he joined the Revenue Department as a clerk. In that year, Society Theatre was established. He was not interested in the office work. He was dismissed from office for irregular attendance and leaving office during the working hours to see movies. Shall I read on? Hello?
Yes, yes, please.
Please,
Just
please.
as you said, you would like to.
Yeah.
I'll come to the end. In 1945, while he was working as a teacher at CC High School, he attended night classes at Imphal College, not only to learn but also to teach. His eagerness to continue his studies and untiring labor bore fruit. He passed BA examination in 1951 and completed BT in 1958. In 1962, he left CC High School and became a full-time lecturer at Imphal College. He retired as the vice principal of Imphal College in 1973. In his farewell message at the time of his retirement, he said, "On the Principal Thodan Nilamani's advice, I had joined the college as a full-time lecturer. Most of the students at that time were senior persons who worked in offices. They asked me many questions. In the beginning, I felt awkward. I had to read many books in order to learn and satisfy them. College has made me a man. It had compelled me to read many books. I got the opportunity to learn from many experts in their respective fields. All had become materials for my play. College had brought me up." One of his plays, Laibak Khova Andolan, or Uprising of the Masses, created a furor. This play is based on the strikes that followed Socialist Party's movement to demand statehood for Manipur. He was asked to submit the English translation of the entire play, scene by scene, to the superintendent of police at a short notice. 6 persons were engaged to do the translation. The superintendent of police could not find any fault with the script, and the government machinery could not do anything to stop the play from being staged. However, the government machinery used another tactics. After the tickets for 2 shows were sold out, Section 144 of CRPC was promulgated around the theater. All of a sudden, only one show could be staged. In 1961, for the first time, Manipuri Sahitya Parishat Imphal honored him with Jamini Sundar Guha Gold Medal. It was the first award he received in his life. After that, he received many awards, honors and awards at the state and national levels. Manipuri Sahitya Parishat Imphal honored him again by giving him the title Sahitya Ratna. Government of India conferred Padma Shri on him in 1975. He received Sahitya Akademi Award in 1978 for Ngabong Khao or Coarse Cotton Sake, one of his plays. This play, written and directed by him, was staged at many places outside Manipur. In 1992, Manipur University conferred D.Lit on him. He had tried his hands at making film. He wrote the script and directed Kuthang Lamjel or Relay Race, a Manipuri film. He was also an actor. He played minor roles. He took the role of a woman once when he could not find a suitable actress for the part of a 45-years old mother for his play, Zazna Masabu Jelda. He had forgotten to shave off his mustache, and the unsuspecting spectators loved and had a merry time when they saw him. Since I am senior to you, I'll have to leave. One of my feet is already placed on the other side. When I go there tomorrow, I don't know what to say, what to tell them, said Jishi Tongbra when he felt his end was looming large. He died at the age of 83 on June 3, 1996. Before he died, he expressed his wish of staging Ngabong Khao on the day of his Shraddha ceremony. Play was the soul of his life. More than 100 plays written by him have already been staged. To his credit are nearly 100 books of plays. He can rightly be said to be the greatest Manipuri playwright of the 20th century. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I can understand and imagine what a detailed bio-narrative this is and cannot wait to read the full article, I'm sure. Thank you. I would now move on to Zualteii Poonte ma'am to please read from the pages of her contribution.
Thank you, Sangeeta. I hope I'm speaking loudly enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And first I want to say hello to everyone here. Ushapti, Malsawmi, Jacob, Bijoy, Tashi, Mamang, a number of you whom I have met before. And I remember you all. Okay. What I had contributed to this anthology is something that I had written quite a long time ago. That is in the year 2009. And it's it's actually quite a short piece. So this is called Anatomy of a Rainstorm on the Mountains. Roa Thimpui is what we call them up here in these highlands. Roa for rain, Tim for dark, Pui for big. So literally a big black rainstorm. As opposed to those summery showers which thoroughly wet your umbrella but don't last very long. An RTP usually visits these high mountains, sometimes unexpectedly at the beginning of the year, around early March, much before the onset of the monsoon rains, and more usually in early May. There's never really any indication earlier on in the day that an RTP, I put the abbreviations here, that an RTP is brewing. No bleary sunrise, no overcast skies, no agitated bird alarms. Just business as usual everywhere. People going about their work, children playing outside. Then suddenly, thick dark clouds start sweeping ominously down the mountains. A strong wind whips out of nowhere and noisily flaps clothes hanging out on lines, banks shut, unbolted windows and doors, stirs dust from the ground and sends debris swirling in the air. There are short, sharp sounds everywhere. Glass shattering, neighbors calling out to one another in high, hurried tones as they rush around collecting their wash. Voices screaming for the children to get indoors immediately. Windows and doors are hastily shut and firmly bolted. Rolling shutters of shop doors noisily dragged way down low. People on the streets with or without umbrellas rush for the nearest shelter. Lightning streaks viciously across blackened skies and thunder rumbles. Within minutes, heavy raindrops smack fatly down, relentlessly rattling tin rooftops and glass windows. A smothering curtain of grey, impenetrable mist and fog settles over everything, drawing visibility to claustrophobic limits. Sometimes little ice balls of petrified rain pelt down, hammering car tops and tin-roofed houses. Hail always causes excitement. Children are especially fascinated, and a few daring ones dart out to pick up the glistening white stones. Within four walls, the electricity is invariably cut off. Darkness reigns supreme. People light candles or old-fashioned lanterns at noon. A few awestruck faces peer through glass panes at nature's unleashed fury raging outside. Some huddle down on long chairs, others bunk down under warm blankets in bed to comfortably wait out the storm. Sometimes it continues for as long as almost an hour. Sometimes it's done in a few minutes. The rain stops, the fog clears, the clouds roll back to their places somewhere beyond the mountains. The sun reappears, people open windows and doors and come outside. Everything is bedraggled and dripping, and life picks up again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. This really leaves the heart wanting more from the book, you know. So we are really looking forward to the book. And I would now request Tashi Chophell, sir, who is here. So could you please read a bit from your contribution?
We can't hear you.
We can't hear anything.
We can't hear you.
We can only see you nodding away.
Can't hear.
Still can't hear.
Tashi, sir, we can't hear you.
You're not audible. Do you by chance have headphones? Would you have headphones?
Yes, I just saw him using a headphone.
Yes,
I
yes,
believe that can
yes.
work.
Before he comes back, can we discuss about something or take up anything?
I hope there's no storm going on over there.
Yeah, maybe.
We're having a lot of rain, actually. The lights going off, at least here where I am.
Yes.
Maybe refreshing the page might help.
Could you just sign out and sign in again?
Yes, yes. I think that will help.
Yes,
Just
it
sign
might.
up once and come back again. So that might help.
We will wait
We'll
for
just
you.
wait. Yes, yes. Till then, we can certainly carry on with any discussion, any comment. We were thinking that if there is a question answer session that can be kept at the end of the the readings, and then I was wondering that in a book launch, I'm not sure how much questions people will have other than only curiosities and a wish to read more. So maybe we can invite comments, and till such time Tashi sir can come back. So if there is any comment, then
We have Jayanti ma'am here. Jayanti ma'am, would you like to say something? Please do.
Thank you so much, Baswantara, and greetings from Tamil Nadu. I'm so happy and delighted to be a part of this book launch. And as Malashri ma'am said, it's so easy that you can find poetry from Northeast, but prose writing is a rare collection. So this gives me a lot of curiosity to get hold of the book. And whenever I come across a good book, I make sure I give it to my students. We get a copy for our library. Also, I'm sure we are waiting to get this book for our library. And Northeast as a geography and as a literature has a mystical beauty. I'm sure this book should reveal more to the world. And Jaydeep ji, it's always an honor to be a part of anything that you initiate. And I've always wondered how you connect people and voices across the subcontinent and across the globe. And Malsawmi, Jacob ma'am, I was happy to listen to you, very candid about the process of how you got around to get this book. And I'm sure all
Thank you.
your hard work would pay off well. And this would be a real resource for the rest of the continent and also for the students as such. Hoping to read the book very soon. Wishing all the best. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
ma'am.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Janti. Thank you.
I can see Tashi sir back. So Tashi sir, can we please try again?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
now
yes.
we can.
Thank you. First of all, greetings from Sikkim. I would like to congratulate Malsawmi. I would like to congratulate Jaydeep and Sahitya Akademi for this wonderful book. And thank you for including me in this anthology. And as always, thank you, Mamang, for the kind words, as always. I'll read an excerpt of the book, of the short story, sorry. It's called A House for Anum Adek. He received the news with elation. I guess that's what winning a lottery ticket felt like. His panchayat had come to his house one evening and over a round of chang had said, "Ing, I've put your name for a new house." He had looked at his house, which required repairs for sure. The roof was leaking at many places, and one side the house was beginning to sag. His house was old. He had been born in it, and he himself now was old. The house was built on columns of tree trunks that were supported by plaster of mud and stones. On it, a wooden structure was built to be closed off with tin sheets for a roof. He remembered himself changing the roof with sheets of tar barrels when a road snaked up into the village below. He had plied the supervisor with milk, eggs, and vegetables for 2 months before the supervisor relented. That had been decades ago, and now they badly required repairs. 2 months after the panchayat had come to his house, they were all assembled in the panchayat ghar, where the local MLA distributed the allotment orders to the 40-odd beneficiaries in the block. He had cleaned the khada that he took out from a rickety box at home, and he offered to the MLA, who pulled his clothes, hugged him, and with a smile gave him a rectangular piece of paper that had his photograph pasted on it. Among the beneficiaries sitting along with him were Anum Lazang, 3 houses away. He too needed a new house, but there were others also who were rich and had good houses and vehicles. He had heard that this government scheme was only for the poor and needy. The person next to him whispered they were party workers being rewarded for their support in the last elections. That day, the engineer had brought a plan of the house, which he showed to all. There would be 3 rooms for the family to stay in, a kitchen, and a toilet in the house. It would be a cement concrete house with a slab where additional floors could be added by the beneficiary. What he had expected was a house to materialize before his eyes, where he could have a room for himself and his wife, and a room for his sons. One could be what now people call a sitting room, where guests were entertained. In his old house, everyone came into a large kitchen, sat, talked, ate, and slept next to the warm hearth. But his expectations were unfounded, and 3 years had passed, and his house was yet to be completed. Columns had risen on the proposed site, and a slab cast on it, and that was that. Money for the house had not been enough, and progress had halted. The business of constructing a new house was tedious and tiresome. First, the hunt for a mason were quoting high rates, as there were many houses to construct and masons were few. Some of them had given their houses to a local contractor, but he felt that the quality would not be good enough, as the contractor would have to make a profit out of it. Then there was the matter of procurement of materials like sand, stone, cement, and rods, matters of which he knew little of, and costs were horrifying. The way they talked, it implied he was a rich person who had plenty of cash lying around and could buy anything anytime he wanted. Getting the engineer to visit his site was another problem. He always seemed to be busy and in a hurry. No time to walk to his place that was 6 kilometers uphill. A basket of vegetables, eggs, and butter finally melted him to come and give him the line. The mason became a permanent member in the house as he lived across the hill and would not commute every day. Somehow, with labor and his sons helping, the foundations crept along and the columns rose up. When he received the first installment, a sum of rupees 1 lakh, the mason quickly asked for 30,000 as advance, as he had a sister to marry off and disappeared. There were days of festivities, as it was a sum he had never seen in his life. A little was pocketed by the engineer sir, who had signed the paper so he could get the installment. And his sons wanted new clothes, and he decided to save the rest for the slab that was to be cast as the next step. 2 weeks later, and the mason had yet to return. Messages had been sent, and the mason had replied that he would arrive soon. Days became weeks, and a month passed by. He had ventured to the mason's village, only to find him working on another house there. He is my cousin, and he had problems with his mason, so I'm helping him for a couple of days. I'll come to you as soon as I raise the column. He was tempted to ask for his money back, but where would he find another mason? So he had left it at that, with exacting a promise to come soon. Then his wife took to bed, and money saved started being used for a treatment. She succumbed after months of treatment in the district hospital, and the funerary rites put further dent in the savings. The next time he visited the mason, he was not to be found. He had left with no whereabouts. The locals said that he had taken money from the other fellow, who was not his cousin, and moved off. He had been duped. Thank you. That much for now.
Thank you so much. This is certainly increasing our interest and curiosity to read the complete book, very soon. But also, as I was thinking that to echo what Miruna ma'am said and many others we also observed about this book, that is perhaps this book is going to be a very important reference point in the classrooms, graduate and postgraduate classrooms, because that is going to make a difference. So on that note, as the comments continue in the chat box, I can see, I would without much ado come to that part of the program, which is a formality, of course, but at the same time, it just doesn't at times feel like the program should end. But then again, these are the realities we have to go by. So I would invite Oshudharadi to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you. I think it has been I have been muting and unmuting myself, switching on and off my video, and I have been listening, to this flow of conversations, and it was delightful the way it took place. We have so many people from so many places and all here together brought by a book. The book indeed is very, very significant, as we have had so many academic perspectives on it already in this 90 minutes or so. And we realized that this is just a showcase, this is just a glimpse into something. It's a mine almost, it's a glimpse into a mine of creativity, of literary wealth. And I sincerely hope that the editors and Sahitya Akademi will, in the days to come out with, sequels of the book, and there will be, successive editions documenting the prose from Northeast India, because as almost everyone here agreed, we sincerely have not encountered prose writings of this nature before. A compendium of prose writings from the Northeast has never been found together. And this makes the book a very, very rare addition to all libraries across, India and the world. So thank you very much, everyone who was here. The editors who generated, who brought the book into being, Sahitya Akademi, who could make it possible, who facilitated the birth of this wonderful book. We had marvelous speakers here who were, throwing light on its various aspects. And of course, the rich contributors who could, weave all this together into the wonderful flow that we have all been mesmerized by. Thank you to the wonderful audience that we have had. So many people from the Northeast joining in to cheer their friends reading. It has been a very, very memorable launch, and I sincerely hope, as Sanjukta ma'am said, that the book should go ahead confidently to win heads and hearts. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here, and I hope the editors will seriously consider thinking of more books, compiling writings from the Northeast. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a very good evening, all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rao.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mamang. Thank you, Sanjukta Di.
Thank you, Raoji. So nice to see
Thank
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
And we must thank Sangeeta and
Thank you.
Vasudhara for coordinating.
Yes.
Sangeeta and Vasudhara.
Yes, thank you so much, Vasudhara, Sangeeta. Really.
Thank you for that wonderful compliment.
Miruna, thank you, Miruna. That's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Sanji, yeah. Well,
Bye.
take care. Take
Bye
care.
bye, all of you. Bye bye.
Take care. Take care.
Till the
Take
next
care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Take care.
Sangeeta. See you. Bye.
Bye.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
See you soon.
Thank you so